Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Bulletproof for BJJ podcast. I am JT.
Hey guys, I'm Joey.
And today we are talking about cultivating a stoic mindset for BJJ success. It's a challenging thing, this jiu-jitsu thing, and if you are not looking at it with a stoic mindset, it can get you down. It can beat you up.
Can I just, before we go there, talk about something that I've been reflecting on from a stoic perspective? Is you and me almost getting a divorce after the episode we did, number 71.
Okay. Yes, please.
We've had so much epic feedback off that episode.
Yes.
What was it? It was rest rounds.
Rest rounds.
It was rest rounds versus no rest rounds. And if you don't know which side of the fence I'm on and JT's on, go back and listen to episode 71. You will enjoy yourself.
You will.
But it's amazing the feedback from that. People are like, you guys are fucking great. Like, oh man, like, I can't, actually what's really interesting is that people are like coming through with like no fucking rest rounds. Like they're like, I'm JT's side. And people are like, no man, I think rest rounds are a good idea. Joey's right. Like taking sides.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's because generally when we do discuss things, generally there's consensus. Even though there are plenty of things that we don't necessarily agree on, we don't always debate it or discuss it in this environment.
That's right.
Because we usually
hit record.
No, we've got a point to make. It usually happens at the cafe before we get here.
Yeah.
But just to put some context around that, I think I was on my third double espresso and I was fueled.
We kick off at like 10 a.m. guys.
Yeah. So I get up at 4.
6 shots deep.
I was 6 shots deep. I was in the zone.
Right on.
Like I should have been on Rogan.
Yeah.
Like I was just like,
I don't think you could have kept it together for 3 hours.
Alex Jones.
You would have melted after a first hour.
I was pretty fueled though. But the thing is, I had eaten that morning. Joey was fasting. He wasn't quite as high energy. So
I'm not high energy.
No, you can bring energy, but it was also, put context around this. Joe often sees when he finds a catch point. Or he sees the spark. He sees the spark in me, and he's like, "I'm going to poke this." It's like I can read this up, and I guess that's the thing. I do get fired up. That's me. And if you know what I'm like, and you've seen me at a jiu-jitsu tournament, losing my voice, screaming, at people.
In my defense, I maybe sometimes I can see that in you. I'm like, oh, this will be fun to poke the bear. But on that one, I was just like, no, this is what I think. And you were like, nah, fuck that.
Yeah, well, that's right.
And so you actually escalated all on your own. And to be honest, I didn't need to poke at all. I was trying to, and then you're like, fuck you if you think I'm bending on this. I'm not bending on this.
I'm not. I won't. And that's the thing. I am very staunch about certain beliefs. And, however you look at it, and you guys don't know me personally, but you will come to know me.
I think we could say that these guys know you personally.
Well, all right.
What are we? You were at like 75 odd episodes.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, they've gained an insight.
Yeah, but you haven't had me crossface you. You haven't had me like punch you in the throat.
Yeah, they haven't been out on a date with you.
No, they haven't had my beard stubble graze their eyebrow off or anything like that. Like not jiu-jitsu roll personal.
Right. Yeah.
And so in that way, you haven't experienced that intensity or seen me try to break my back doing a deadlift. Like that other side of it. And so what supports that is my firm belief in certain things. So when Joe and I disagree, I'm not backing down. And, neither does Joe. He's very, content in his belief and understanding. And I want to shake that up sometimes.
Secure, you might say.
Maybe. But yeah, I think the thing is you get to see all different sides of us, and we're both pretty strong-headed humans. So when we don't agree, no one wants to back down. It's hard to get a concession out of either of us.
True. Tell me about Stoicism. What is Stoicism?
Stoicism, if we're looking at it as a set of, like the Stoics, as a set of historical people, it started in Greece on the Stoa, which is the kind of porch, the painted porch, because that's where people would gather together and philosophize, Zeno. And it migrated across the sea to Rome. And it was kind of not dying out, but there was different, very prominent Stoics, and then it did migrate across to Rome, and then there was various people and within Roman society who held it up. And Joe has an interesting historical note to mention around this. We were talking about the other day, your brother.
Ah, yes, the criticism.
Which is
well,
cool.
and just before that, it's a philosophy, isn't it?
It is.
It's like a philosophy of life.
It's a set of beliefs. So
Yeah.
you're looking at justice, wisdom, temperance, and courage. These are the 4 Stoic virtues. And even though the Stoics as humans had their various flaws, the idea is that you're doing whatever you can to uphold these 4 virtues. Take the words and turn them into works. Be a good person and do what is right. That's the kind of premise behind it. Look, and a lot of people, there's a lot of criticisms of Stoicism, but the idea of a Stoic mindset is to work out your locus of control, like what is under your control and what is not. And Stoics would say that it's your reasoned choice. You can't control disease. If you get the plague, you get the plague. What are you going to do? If you get thrown in jail, you get thrown in jail. Back in the ancient times, bad stuff had happened. You just had to control how you reacted to it. And this actually has a lot in common with Buddhism and a few other religions and philosophical approaches to life, because life a couple of thousand years ago was pretty wild and bad stuff could happen to you and you had to negotiate it. And I believe there is huge value in having a Stoic approach to your BJJ journey. But that said, Joe and I were having this discussion because, like, Joe is quite a Stoic guy. He tends to just go, you know what, whatever, I got my ass kicked, I'm coming back better next week. Doesn't get phased. He's not phased. And that is a core tenet of being a Stoic, is this amor fati, which is to love your fate. So even if something bad happens, you're like, I'm cool with it. That's good for me. I can learn from that. Not, I'm a victim.
Not to complain about it.
No, don't complain. Never catch yourself complaining. It's actually not good for your own health to complain, even in your own mind. So we were having this discussion and Joe had brought up his brother, who is a historian of sorts.
Yeah, so my brother Abe studied ancient history. He's a fucking smart dude. He's very left leaning, so he loves to rip on any kind of belief system that's really not, communism. But he studied a lot of ancient history, a lot of Greek history, and I remember mentioning, because Stoicism, like if you're hearing this for the first time, or maybe you've heard it and you're not really too familiar, there's been a renaissance in the last, 10 years?
Well,
guys like Ryan Holiday
5.
and stuff.
Yeah, and within at least the kind of tech valley.
Yeah, it's become like in a similar way to how I think in the 90s the tech world adopted like Sun Tzu, like Art of War and stuff. Like we love to jump on like just that shit and appropriate it for ourselves.
Jump on the trend.
Yeah. But so it's become quite big, right? And so I was chatting to my brother about it. I was like, what are you down with this Stoicism thing? Because I was like, it's kind of cool, like, Yeah. And my brother's like, yeah, Stoicism. He's like, that's basically what the military generals and the elite were peddling to the underlings, to just accept your fate because they're the ones that had to go into battle and get their arms chopped off. It's like, if you're sending people to their death, of course it's going to help you to give them a belief system that says, accept what it is that's in front of you.
Yes.
And you could make the argument that many religions
follow
a similar thing where it's like, like it's not about this life, it's about the next life. Or it's, and it's like, whatever.
It's pretty brutal.
Eat shit now because it'll be better afterwards, So that was just an interesting point. But, all that aside, it is something that I look at. I go, I see a lot of good things that like a lot of value that I can extract from this philosophy.
Yeah. And delayed satisfaction. I read a book many years ago, which is called How Children Learn. And it's really about how to help kids become successful. And the two things you don't have to read this book. It's not an interesting book. But the two key takeaways were, if you want to help your kids be successful, you let them know you love them. That's really important. They have to have a good connection to you as their parent, whether they're your biological child or not. They just need to know they're loved. And delayed satisfaction. It's being able to be a bit bored now or do the thing you don't want to do right now in the name of getting the thing you want later. And this is not about the afterlife. This is do the hard, challenging thing now, regardless of how you feel about it, because that is what reaps the rewards, doing the hard thing. And this idea, and this is my personal motto, which is to seek adversity, is to lean in on things that are uncomfortable. And for me, that's probably doing emails, collating tax receipts from my accountant, just stuff like that, just things that you have to do as an adult that just make me feel like I'm wasting my time because I'm not good at them. Whereas someone else who's more studious or more organized, they might enjoy that. Whereas I've really conditioned myself to really like lifting weights or really like training hard. The exhaustion I feel from training, I have conditioned myself to really put my reward centers around that because I know that's what will make me better. So when I'm totally exhausted, just trying to drive myself a little bit harder with the last little ounce of will that I have and just not caving gives me great satisfaction when it's all done. I can look in the mirror and be like, yeah, man, regardless of if Joey tapped me 5 times and we recorded it and he's going to put it on YouTube later to some lo-fi hip hop.
Check it out. Like and subscribe.
I just know that I gave it everything and I didn't give up when everything in the back of my head was telling me to.
Yeah. So here's a question, because I think for anybody listening, you can make that. You train jiu-jitsu, you can make that. You can see that relationship, like do something that's challenging and that I don't necessarily want to do, and then reap a benefit. Yeah. Like absolutely, like makes perfect sense. Talk to me about what is it about that, about doing the hard thing that gives the reward? Is it the fact that we tend to seek comfort, and that by like doing something that's hard, we go through this challenge and we come out with new knowledge or new strength, or is it the fact that you've just endured something that's tough, and simply by enduring something that's tough, there's like an innate reward system that's like, good on you, you did a tough thing. Do you know what I'm getting at?
Yes, definitely. It's multi-layered. So you get huge hormone response. So your body will release way more endorphins and far more growth hormone and everything. If you've ever done sprint training, guys, or you've done sprints on the beach and you felt that nauseous feeling from the lactate or hill sprints, you were doing some hill sprints for a while with the Dark Prince. Your body's adaptation is massive. So whether it's more like a cardiovascular thing or it's weightlifting and you're pushing your upper limit, your body develops from the stress. So not only does it develop on a cellular level, like in your tissues, it develops in your brain. So your nervous system, you get more activation, and also you access a greater part of your brain when you do this. So there's different theories of how your nervous system works, but quite literally, that one of them is the central governor theory, where you have this kind of limiter in your brain which says, no, you can't go any further. And you go, oh, okay. Or you go, no, and you're forced to do it. And then suddenly your brain goes, oh, we could do a bit more. And you actually have a realization about what you're doing, and that helps you build confidence to lean in on that. And every time you go a little bit further, you can go a little bit further.
Perimeters expand.
Yeah, provided you don't completely destroy yourself.
Yeah.
The other side of that is also your willingness to suffer. Like, I think if you've listened to any other podcasts on business or on performance, or anyone who's had to do something which was just, everyone told them it wasn't going to work, and they bet the house on it, and they did everything they could, and they found a way through. It's your ability to stay working even when everything is telling you to stop. And I don't mean the surgeon has told you need a knee reconstruction. You're like, nah, I'm going to train anyway.
I'm back squatting triple body weight.
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just saying, in those moments when you're really exhausted and you know there's only 20 seconds left in the round, you could just turtle up, or maybe you could just get out of there and try and get the sweep, and just, even though it's going to be gut-wrenchingly hard, you do it, and then you realize actually the anticipation is always greater than the event. You do it, you come out on the other side, and you go...
Classic line from Hard to Kill, Steven Seagal. Must give credit where credit is due.
I'm not going to credit Steven Seagal with that, but please, yeah, Joe, misattribution. That's the way.
When he's stalking Senator Calabrese at the end, and he kills his henchman and in his mansion, and then he writes with the blood. You don't see him write it, but Senator Calabrese goes to the fridge and gets a drink, and he's shitting himself, and he closes it, and then written on the fridge in blood is, anticipation of death is worse than death itself. And then there's Steven Seagal with a shotgun and he blows his balls off.
What?
Yeah, bro. Hard to Kill was one of the fucking greats of Seagal legacy.
It's a great movie. I haven't seen it for such a long time. Oh my God.
Do yourself a favor, fam.
I loved it. That's your recollection. I'm like, back in 1630, Zeno said to Epictetus. No, my God. It's like, and then Seagal said to Senator Bolognese. Circling back around, if we think about the benefits of this, it's probably as much a way of thinking, like a philosophy, as a way of action.
Yep.
Because talking with, and this episode will drop pretty soon, or we will have dropped by the time you guys hear this, is the interview with my friend Thomas Lisboa. And he's a light feather. He's a 55 kilo guy getting beat down by big monsters. World silver medalist in no-gi, and I think bronze medalist in the gi. And I said to him, Thomas, I saw you go so hard against all these big guys and they just bashed him mercilessly and he didn't back down. Like he took the beatings, he kept going. And he said that's the beauty of jiu-jitsu is the adversity. It's the challenge. That is the value in it, is actually willing yourself to be challenged, because so much of what's around us in our society is willing you to not be challenged. Take the easy path. Make it easy on yourself. You should take it easy. Don't do that. Don't do this. When actually we all know that's not what builds character, and that doesn't build self-belief either. That's, and this is not like harden up. This is just, and we did talk, circling back to us almost getting divorced, who would get Julian? Who gets custody?
Julian can choose.
Julian takes first rounds. He's going with Joe. I think that there's less opportunity in modern life. If you're hearing this, if you're listening to a podcast, you know what I'm talking about. Even though life is stressful and it can be hard in its own way, there's less opportunity for us to be courageous and push ourselves. And jiu-jitsu is actually the perfect environment of controlled risk for us to do that. Do things we're not comfortable with.
Yes. I think the one of the kind of main things I see with it is that, like to your point, life has become pretty comfortable for us, particularly here in the West. Yes, sir. And no doubt there are people listening to this that are in parts of the world where things are not as easy as they are right here, right now.
Of course.
And, maybe they are. Maybe next year it changes. Maybe, like this stuff changes. Fuck, we're seeing that with the Ukraine invasion, right? It's like, of course, this whole thing is fragile. But at the end of the day, if I look at, if I think about what my life has been until now, it's extremely comfortable, right? And so it's great. It's what we all strive for, is to have a comfortable life. Yes. However, our DNA was built off the back of a constant struggle. Yeah. And it didn't mean that you weren't fighting wars the whole time, but it was like a struggle to find food, a struggle to procreate, a struggle to avoid predators. Yes. A struggle to beat the elements, the rain, the wind, whatever. So we don't have those struggles anymore. We've found ways to master them through technology and society and collectivism. Something like jiu-jitsu, something like going to the gym and lifting weights a couple of times a week is a way for you to simulate the struggle. Yes. Because really at the end of the day, you can just you could just take all the rounds off tonight if you at jiu-jitsu, right? You just go, I'm not going to roll tonight. Yeah. Or you go, this knee's a bit sore, Yeah. Or so it is make-believe in a sense, but you can get into the fire and you can practice this thing. And I think this is what people like Joe Rogan talk about all the time. This is exactly what your Thomas Lisboa said. It's a place where you can have that struggle, but it's almost free of the real world costs. You're not going to die if you lose. No. Right? It just resets and you go again. And I think that, and I do think that that's why it's so popular. I think that maybe people don't realize, a lot of folks don't realize that's why they love it, but that's why they love it. Because the body's thanking you. The body's I need this. Yeah. I need this because this fucking middle line that I'm existing on all the time with no ups, no downs really kind of equals more downs. Yeah. Whereas when you've got these extremes, you start to calibrate your view of the world and how you exist in it. And I think that there's a reward system inside for that. Definitely. And look, Rogan might have said something similar, but if you've never been punched in the face, it's a real shock when you get it. But if you've been punched in the face a bit,
maybe you've lost a tooth, maybe you've been kicked in the face, maybe you've had a car accident. You know what that pain and that shock is like. So your body naturally calibrates to be just a little bit less sensitive in that way. And you'd all know, like, if you're in the middle of a roll and you're almost past and you're like trying to pass, like, and the person kicks you in the face and they're like, oh, I'm sorry. And you're like, okay, cool. Just let me, like, you don't even stop. You're like, okay, shake hands. Like, yeah, you're sweet. I'm passing this guard. You don't care because it doesn't bother you. You're focused on what you're trying to do, and a kick in the face is not in the front. Whereas somebody who has no physical roughness or isn't challenged in any way like that might get a slight knock and be like, oh, I've herniated my neck. And the thing is, if you only tolerate what you experience. And so if your experience doesn't factor in certain stresses, then you will be less durable. And, you know, this is the thing we always talk about with our program, is trying to make yourself more robust for jiu-jitsu. But if we just put that on the side and go, let's take this to life, if you're in a meeting and you've got a terrible boss, or, you know, it's like an
or a shit house business partner, let's say.
Yeah, and they're always testing you because they've got a young kid and they've got lots of excuses.
And they don't listen, you know, they don't follow up on tasks, let's say.
You say they love email and they just want to put a million messages on Trello that you always have to follow up with. Like,
always bringing a new idea to the table but never seeing it through.
Yeah.
As an example.
Yeah, a lack of imagination that doesn't expand the vision of the company. You know, all these things. You got to deal with it. And you can't always have the option to just strangle them because you're better than them at jiu-jitsu. It might be a boss you can't strangle. It might be a business partner you can't strangle. So in those instances, you got to look at them and be like...
Lucky we don't face any of those struggles in our business, James.
It's all roses, baby. But essentially, it's the Stoic mindset is to look at, you know, if any of you are familiar with Jocko Willink.
Never heard of him.
When people say...
Does he roll?
Hardly. He's got skinny legs. I'd heel hook that guy. Huge upper body. If you get to the ankles.
Huge head.
The
forehead is
ginormous.
Yeah.
But if you see full body images of Jocko, there's nothing to speak of the lower body.
Okay.
So he's like, there's a photo of him struggling with the 48, or maybe it's 56. It's a fair size kettlebell to like get it overhead. And it zooms back. He's got real skinny lower limbs.
Okay.
Super jacked upper body. Massive upper body. But yeah, I reckon you leg lock the hell out of that guy.
Yeah, but he's very tight with Dean Lister. He's got to have some good heel hook defense.
No, I reckon he just doesn't let you get there.
Right.
That's right. He's old school. He's like a low and slow, crush you type cat.
Yeah.
Yeah. I reckon.
My kind of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. All right. Well, you guys hang out. No, the thing about Jocko is he always says, good. Someone goes, oh, yeah, but this didn't work out. Good. He just says that to everything. Shirts. And that is his whole thing is about accountability and you accepting like extreme levels of accountability that when something